So I would say there is a place for this kind of generation. It's almost to stay in the game, but I would supplement this content, your agent, with frequent uh, videos, frequent live content, or
Mm.
custom original generated content of any
You
kind. You should add some humanity to the mix. And it's not going to be every post. You're not going to spend your whole day doing this, but if you do this on a regular basis and have sincere content and be genuine,
Mhm.
talk about real issues the industry is facing or real challenges, that really resonates. And I think that can add some real flavor to your brand. The thing that people will tune in for is when they see you as the founder, your original thoughts. Are you a person I want to work
A strategic growth leader and digital marketing visionary, he's helped startups to Fortune 500 scale fast without burning budget. As the Chief Growth Officer at Market Surge, he's building inbound machines that drive pipeline while you sleep. Oh, that's heaven, isn't it? With wins at Oracle, with Solstice and Northwestern. He's a data nerd, a fluent Italian speaker, and a growth hacker with a heart. Well, welcome to Leadership That Sells. This is the podcast that helps you lead first and sell more. And that's because most sales teams today are not really teams. They're what we call teams in parallel. And most managers are still leading them like they're a football team, when in reality what they have is like a team of Olympians, This mismatch is the root of most of the big problems. Coaching that doesn't land, pipeline reviews that feel like interrogations, and your A players who operate as lone wolves. So what you need is a leadership power up for your managers. And it's not another heavy training manual to learn. It's just a nice, light, fast reset that gives them the simplest model to lead the team they actually have. We teach them to set the target with absolute clarity, build the flag with a shared identity, and then hand over the map and coach the people for true autonomy. Now, if you're ready to fix the model, you can grab our free parallel team playbook. It's short, sharp, and built for senior leaders just like you. And you can find it at the Practical Leadership Academy. Reed Hansen, thank you very much indeed for joining me.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Oh, great to have you, man. Great to have you. Now, we were chatting just beforehand, and you just came up with the sharpest, hottest thing I think I've ever that is going to resonate with everybody here. And the title of these sessions tends to be "How to Tie Your Shoelaces Without Falling Over," right? And you had two suggestions, and we threw out the rubbish ones that I had. And the first was how to nail your ICP. Always good, and always one of the biggest things I ever see. You go into an organization and they're saying, "Oh, my sales team's rubbish." They're not. They're never rubbish. It's normally the manager who's a bit rubbish, or their ICP is wrong. They're selling the wrong thing to the wrong person. We are going to assume, for the sake of this conversation, that our ICP is on the money. Okay, we've nailed it. And the topic of conversation today, ladies and gentlemen, is how to create an AI agent that supports your marketing content generation. I might have to abbreviate because I've only got so many words, but in short form, Agentic AI is the new dog's proverbials. Okay, we're all using ChatGPT. We're all using these tools to give us frameworks and ideas and help polish what it is we're doing. But the agentic element of this, I'm only just getting into this with the tools that are out there. Talk to me about that first before we get
Sure.
further in.
Yeah, absolutely. So when you are using a LLM, and most of these models have an interface that looks like a chat entry. So you have an open field where you can put in text, whether it's a question or a statement. In some cases, you can upload data files like a Excel spreadsheet, CSV spreadsheet, or images for reference to help bolster your request. And the agent, so when you enter that and you put in the request, you get a return. Now, the return is just a general return. It's like asking a stranger this question, but a very knowledgeable stranger that accesses the whole internet very quickly. Now, when you start thinking of the agent concept, this stranger now becomes somebody that is very educated on a topic you give them, a set of information that you give them that they always reference back. So it almost like shapes their responses based on certain instructions. Like one very broad one would be always respond using using a very humorous tone. Give me a lot of witty responses just to make me smile in every response. And we can debate at how good these AI models are at humor, but it will respond, and everything you ask it, it will come back with something humorous or attempts at humor. And but you can take that the next step and train it as if you were training an employee. So the idea being is that you can have a section, a very customized AI model that thinks like you want it to think, or takes a perspective or a bias that you want applied to every request you send. So I'll pause there, and then I do have a framework for how to do this, but just wanted to start with the description.
Right. So I've used you can kind of create your own GPTs in ChatGPT. You can do the same in Gemini, you can do the same in Grok. You can upload a ton of your own material and say, write like me. You can upload a ton of information and say, using this as your background, this is your onboarding documents, extrapolate from and work out how to do something based on this knowledge that I've given you, in addition to all the sewage of the internet that you're basing most of your decisions on anyway, right?
Right.
Because all these things are trained typically on all the gibberish that is out there. When we get to the agentic bit, where it's starting to work specifically on specific tasks for you, that's where something like write me some content. Now, everybody's done this. Right. Nobody's going to really admit to it because the output is typically drivel with M dashes, and you should further your attempts to continue. Have you thought about fostering the charges ahead? What? Now,
in today's fast-paced world.
Yeah, indeed. That hits hard. That hits hard. Oh, shit. The interesting one, do you know the M dash? Do you know that long dash, right, that it uses? It is like you have these specific artifacts that we find in the GPTs out there. And I think it comes from the fact that most of these tools are trained on large English language corpuses. And the biggest ones out there are things like the United Nations, the Library of Congress, all the laws, the European Union, Hansard, which records all the activities of the Houses of Parliament over here in English, okay? And they're all written in legalese. And the M dash is a big old legal thing. So it appears everywhere, and nobody uses it. Nobody knows how to use it because it's not an apostrophe, it's not a parenthesis, it's one of those interesting ones. Anyway. Back to the agentic thing and trying to get these things to write content that actually resonates with somebody. And assuming that, of course, we know to whom we are trying to address their aforesaid content. What do people do wrong when they start? Before we get into your magic method, what do people do wrong?
Well, I think there's a few things. One is assuming that, I guess, assuming too much, giving it too much freedom. I think the AIs are trained on, like you said, a massive body of content, and they will if you do not give it very strict, very detailed parameters. I think in the GPTs you can include up to 30,000 characters or maybe even more, plus attached documents that can expand that exponentially, the amount of data you can reference in every request. But if you don't take advantage of that, if you just include a paragraph, say like, I'd like you to act like you're an employee of my company, reference this website, and then we're good. So not having enough instructions, I think, is, I think a common failing point, and you're really not going to get answers that are that different. You really want to, really get into the weeds here. You want it to have a very extensive, frequently asked questions resource, and have it have answers exactly the way you would answer. You may want to continually refine that, and make sure that it's up to date. Like maybe your stance on a certain technology evolves over time, and make sure you revisit your agent instructions, but also use the attached data that you can send. So the big part of this, you can upload individual CSVs that can be quite extensive. And so if you have, financial data or past blogs that could be formatted like that they could reference, it is, you absolutely have to do that. I would say also not. Another thing is just limiting it to chat. I feel like the best agents that you can generate, they are connected, so they're actively pulling from a data, like a refreshing data source, like news of the day from web sources you trust, or they are pushing data to a system, whether it's your CRM or your social media scheduler, or your blog scheduler. Like the connection is a big part of the equation. And if you just limit it to chat, you are not getting the full value out of an agent.
Okay, right. So now we know what we're doing wrong. What do we do to do it right?
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, I think there's a few very high level guidelines that you should consider, and I think we could group it into three steps. And so the first is the planning phase and defining the agent's role and the boundaries of what it can create. So, do you have a format that you'd like it to work in, and what outcome you'd like it to drive, and who the audience is that you are preparing content for? So this is in the case of our example, creating a marketing content generation agent. Now, you also need to determine what tone you'd like it to use. Some people like a humorous tone. Some people like a more, maybe a legalese or an academic sounding for authority. But ideally, it matches your brand voice and it matches the content that you have already created for that you're educating people about your brand. And then you also need to set boundaries. So, are we going to avoid certain topics? Are we going to say limit political, religious references? Or are we going to, like maybe, for instance, we're in an industry where we don't want to talk about um, outsourcing, or we don't want to talk about uh, there's forbidden topics essentially that just are either impolite or distracting from your message. Those are important to define. And so the planning is really important. And so what you're going to do is use a paid version of Gemini, of ChatGPT, and go to your settings and enable a, so in the case of ChatGPT, a custom GPT.
Hmm.
And you'll have an interface where you name the agent, you can upload an icon, logo, and then there will be a few open fields for these instructions. And like I said, you have thousands of characters to define this, and then further attachments that you can do. And that takes me into the second part. You want to have data sources that you trust. So if you have documents that already exist about your products, your offers, maybe case studies, testimonials, good content that you have written, um, These are attachments that you can add in addition to that open field. And you want to also, I would put in your field. So you put a lot of data, kind of like open text, free form data that you've typed in. But I would encourage you to add helpful marketing structures. So that would be like, um, when we're talking about ads, the AIDA structure, or do you want listicles,
Mm.
with bullets, or do you prefer numbered, or do you, I recommend everybody include like tables in their blogs, for SEO purposes. All those kinds of instructions are critical. But think in terms of, you've got your unstructured content, but then you want to give it the structured instructions in there as well. Attach uh, great content that you've already have, and then you want to make sure that, well, in the case of GPT, I'm not sure about Gemini because it's been a while since I've made a Gemini agent, but you can add um, prompts that are just simple buttons you could tap with your finger, or click with your mouse. Um, just write me a 5-minute script for a YouTube video, or make a LinkedIn post based on this link. And so you're able to click those and just perform the action instantly without having to do any typing. So that's what we'd call, so this area I would call is building the engine, and making sure that it can execute. Now, finally, in the third grouping, I would say this is where you optimize it, and this is where you connect it. So, an agent for marketing content is going to work best if it is feeding into a marketing planner. So, as of now, I don't believe that there's a way to just within GPT to instruct it to post to your LinkedIn profile, or post to your business's Facebook page. So you'll need to connect to a third party tool like your CRM, your like a buffer,
Mm.
or one of these third party tools that allows you for scheduling. And you may need to use a go between, depending on the integration. You may need to use a go between like Make or Zapier to execute. Uh, I think in some cases there would be a plugin that you could literally plug your OpenAI
Mm.
API directly into this to feed it. But without the connection, it becomes less than optimal. You're doing cut and pasting. The formatting gets skewed, and you lose some of the value of the agent. So if you can have an automated connection, that's the dream. That's where this really flourishes. And so you'll run some tests, make sure that you're getting the optimized style of post for the platform, or the blog that looks the most appealing for your website. And then you start scheduling. And so if you have a program where you're posting every day, then you can, at the beginning of the week, you can just run your click prompt 5 times, and you're good to go. And you check the results, and if you like them, continue. If not, you can go back and refine in the instructions, give it more examples. But make sure that you're not training the agent in the chat. You're training in the agentic settings for the custom GPT, and that will be the recipe for success. But the ideal is you come in and schedule things in advance, high quality content that goes straight through an intermediary to your social platforms, and you've got essentially a full-time employee on the case.
Love it. Love it. I have questions.
Please.
Right. I was asked fairly recently by somebody about the impact of AI on salespeople and, let's say, marketeers.
Yeah.
And I said that if you give the various tools to an A player, they'll become A plus. To a B player, they'll become B plus or A minus. You give them to a C player and they become D minus, because what you end up doing is amplifying noise. They were shouting at the wall already. Now they're just going to be screaming at the wall or screaming at multiple walls from the rooftops. Already, these machines are trained on internet sewage. They really are.
Yes. Yes, they are.
Okay? They're trained in the sewage of the internet. And if we're not careful, what we end up doing is like the farmers when they're trying to fertilize their field, they're spraying slurry everywhere at high industrial speed and quantity.
Mm-hmm.
And what I've seen, because courtesy of the M dash signature, is I've seen people write me an email that has gone through Gmail's condenser, and I don't read it, but I read the 2 lines, and I'm quite certain that somebody put 6 words into a Gmail tool,
Mm-hmm.
clicked generate. The email was sent to me. My system went ungenerate or condense.
Sure. Right.
Nobody actually read the email. I just read the thanks Tuesday. That's all I wanted to hear.
Right.
Okay. Now, when I read advertising, info, commercial type stuff, which is what we're talking about here,
Yeah.
and we're trying to be persuaded or allow ourselves to be persuaded, or we're trying to persuade other people, the thing that you're looking for is novelty,
Right.
or empathy, or a pattern disruption, or something like that. And I completely recognize that in the business that we are in, we are particularly jaded. We're particularly immune. We've been immunized to the tools and the techniques and all this sort of stuff. It's like when they started with the COVID advertising, I thought, I know what you're doing. You're trying to manipulate me, you bugger. I can see it. I can see the tools that you're using. So therefore, I'm incredibly skeptical about whatever it is you're telling me. I don't care that you're saying, the sky today is blue. Have you imagined that? No, whoa, I want to go outside and check. The sky is in fact blue, you lying sod. When we use these tools, machines are not empathetic.
Right.
They're not creative. They're curative. Okay? Yet, maybe they'll become more so as the volumes get higher. It's like playing chess. Kasparov said, I can't compete with that because it moves fast. It can think faster and knows more moves. That's not what he didn't lose because he was a worse player. It simply iterated. Okay? How do I not kill my brand
Yeah.
by using these tools? How do I speak to people in a way that they'll want to buy from me, the way that they'll want to listen? That, for me, is a huge risk.
Yeah. I totally understand what you are saying because, for instance, we took our company phone line and I just to give a little color, we were just getting bombarded by robocalls, and mostly it was your Google listing is inaccurate, and it's urgent that we update it. And is recording, and so we've turned on all an automated responder for that voice AI agent that responds to those calls. We get a transcript of those, and it is actually somewhat entertaining to hear two AI voices go back and forth, and they'll say, oh, tell me more, and so we game this a little bit, and so if we know the number, it will come into a human, but but how do we prevent the internet just becoming a platform where my AI agent is talking to yours and or reading your AI content. And I mean, that Gmail example was
Mm.
tremendous. Like in the end, you don't get anything back of value. It's just a transaction for a transaction's sake. So I would, caveat that, when you create a marketing content engine, I recognize that there are going to be some limitations, and you're going to, there definitely is the potential of the AI sounding robotic. Now, you mentioned the slurry of the internet, and I saw that these AI engines are trained primarily on Reddit in particular, and Reddit is,
Such a pleasant place to be.
I
If
know.
you're listening and you've never been to Reddit, don't.
Right, exactly. I think it's the way people, destroy any sense of empathy and just become more and more cruel people. And if that's the case, we're just going to see AI agents become, more and more unfeeling and
Have you
unthinking.
considered auto euthanasia? It would make my life so much better, says
That's
the AI,
right.
right?
Yeah, I
What?
wanted to help out, but I took an arrow to the knee, and you know.
Excellent.
Yeah, so the it's quite frustrating, and so I I would say the marketing content engine, fortunately or unfortunately, whether it's your Google business profile, your LinkedIn business page, your Facebook business page, the algorithm does favor companies that post regularly. Now, a lot of small and medium-sized businesses, that could be an expensive, time-consuming effort to do that. And so I would say there is a place for this kind of generation. It's almost to stay in the game, but I would supplement this content, your agent, with frequent uh, videos, frequent live content, or
Yeah.
custom original generated content of any kind to where especially where your face as a leader of your company, your face is on on the presentation, however, and whether it's your voice, you're doing a short form video, you're recording while you're walking into work or walking your dog, you should add some humanity to the mix. And it's not going to be every post. You're not going to spend your whole day doing this, but if you do this on a regular basis and have sincere content and be genuine,
Mhm.
talk about real issues the industry is facing or real challenges, that really resonates. And I think that can add some real flavor to your brand and make it real. But I think that's absolutely critical. And I mean, I like to use the term "put your face on the content." Is it a photo of you doing something? Is it you talking directly to the audience, or in a public speaking situation? Any of those have a face and a real person on screen.
Yeah. So we're looking at this as more of a, at the moment at least,
Yeah.
because as I said, these things change, as a hygiene factor, right?
Yes.
We're trying to build a presence. We're trying to be consistent. Seems to be a magic word. If you're building
Right.
consistency, right? Okay,
Right.
and doing so in your own tone of voice. Well, that was a good way, I think, of looking at this. And actually, I hadn't thought, because I've played with the create your own GPT things, but actually connecting these using Zapier or one of these make tools or something like that, one
Yeah.
of the little API tools into the buffer, the scheduling engines and things, that's a smart move. Because as you said, you're trying to build a workflow here that frees you up. And you're looking to replace a high salary. You don't want to replace somebody who's doing something for £2 an hour. You want to replace I mean, that's the goal of most of these, the really well-funded AI platforms.
Mhm.
It's not somebody who's replacing your, I don't know, somebody on a typing pool.
Right.
It's, if there is such a thing these days, but it's somebody who's replacing a $200,000 a year lawyer's salary. When
Mhm.
they're doing that, that's when it's really interesting. So,
Yeah.
okay, that's a good goal. What would you then say is your final takeaway if you were going to give somebody who is starting out with this right now and they're thinking, okay, I'm going to give this a go. What's your word of advice? What's your guidance?
So the AI tools are great, and they're going to get better. I've observed this in the last 2, 3, 4 years of using AI for generating content. Just it's tremendously improved over this time span, and I would expect it to further improve. However, it's incomplete without your face, your voice, your real use your ums and uhs and pauses and stutters. You need to also be actively participating in this and recording and creating. In addition, I think maybe if you think of the AI as like you can create original content, have original thoughts, the AI can help you quickly repurpose that content for multiple platforms because
Mm.
an Instagram post is going to be formatted different than LinkedIn or whatnot, and you can greatly accelerate that or expand your reach. And the AI engines can help keep you in the mix,
Mhm.
satisfy the algorithms, but the thing that people will tune in for is when they see you as the founder, your original thoughts. Are you a person I want to work with?
That's the game. Reed Hansen, incredibly valuable. Thank you very much indeed. How to build your agentic AI that supports your marketing, content creation, generation. We'll need to come up with a shorter version, but thank you again for joining me.
Thank you so much.